na menka se obi a wanya opportunity or what me follow Ghana politics for quite some time now. Complaining about how our institutions and the structures of government are very weak, especially under President Akufo-Addo. And it got to a time of virtually all state institutions came crumbling under the influence of the executive powers. You don't see institutions in the moment, individuals be strong men well in control. You who their course our Auditor General, your fancy department, you who their course even within the media and several other state agencies, their court and then as a forum. The Macacho said democracy be the foundational institution who here power back the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. And the who here are Ghana for in Ahotoswam war a womb in your free man. Endanger the prospect of our democracy and the judiciary. But I will follow media discussion, various discussions and polls around your judiciary for quite some time now. What the politics, what the Adberia in China, you come to appreciate is indeed public confidence in the institution, you know, conform to a point at Ghana for GDA and Ahotoswes of war. Our judiciary in Nihobium, all because of some decisions and some appointments, some decision by some of these appointees at the Supreme Court, no, ama nipa en nijidia and there are a lot of online posts, a lot of surveys that have been conducted about the judiciary. A give credence to this, your friends in some year can you be na body team and our until you will be aware so much and teased about a democracy, you'll be worried. Because this is one of the foundational institutions of democracy in Nigeria. So if we are losing the judiciary, you know that we are heading to an arena of chaos and pandemonium if nothing is done about it. And the Myanmar Supreme Court, in recent times, the most revered arm of the judiciary, the Supreme Court, gained some notoriety for being a partisan arm of power. Under Akufo-Addo, and people were using it to do a whole lot of stuff. So we have panel na air course under President Akufo-Addo na. Ebi a man for inshasi and share that entrance in ye. Judges na no more panel or more for cases, you know. They were running through the same people when ayaba kumi no be necessary. The same personalities, the same people, and they were giving the same ruling and the same judgment all over. And then I cover unanimous 11, unanimous 5, and as for by that became a subject, the judiciary, and the Supreme Court, a subject of your friends, a public ridicule, public mortification in all discussion, social media, now for and corruption cases and allegations are level against even some individuals in there. The whole Chief Justice was a subject of your friends, one of these allegations that. Lawyer Bibi Meki at the end of the day, I think that lawyer was suspended, whole lot of issues about saying court. Sanyama way now build it up to that particular perception. And then the mother of all things, the appointment, the brazen manner with which the president was appointing people left, right, center to the Supreme Court bench. Obajia di say, you drew a point here, Obia Yenimsa or your party way ni or contest here, your friend saying, Ho East, on the ticket of the MPP, Elusu ye. Sadi panel, you are promoting her to the stance as such a sensitive bench, and no indication is all qualified. But you see, my culture said there are moral argument and common sense argument that you need to make. You look at the institution in question and how revered and a partisan is supposed to be. There are some individuals who push on mukwa. I know today, no matter the kind of rule or whatever, it will still create doubt on the minds of people, and that impression will solid the reputation of the judiciary. And those never way, causing never do a point. Ghana for to about. I must say they are seeking to reset institutions, and in resetting this institution, it's not just any institution. The most foundational institution can be. Don't forget that this reset started from Parliament too. Is the reason why you saw that massive numbers this time around. Because most of the majority people are more the MPPs were voted against. So when people are talking about this reset, they don't talk about say the reset already taking place our parliament that are taking place our the executive that is the reason why Bawumia lost the way he lost. Then the only armor here that pruning at this time is the judiciary. And it's not as if the President Mahama Adversarial say me koyi judge free ho. Only that akwenya. a petition that has to be submitted by a Ghanaian. Ghana niya or ha or dissatisfied with Niema the Supreme Court and I say Chief Justice and so Article 146 so be when and Kabeme that will copy or hand can go through how what has to be done in that particular way and that will be at the petition Akwa President forwarded to your friend is saying Council of State now or more establish what I say there are merits and I say that particular petition have some credence be able to be forwarded to a panel for subsequent procedure say because Meanwhile, Niamana air question generate a whole lot of debate in the first place. Matisse says Tafo MP at the court say or stop the process because of free said president at Chief Justice 9 so be your friends saying what nefa who so because Onyama na Kenya no. And sometimes what's in China will follow some of these things, and this guy in question is a parliamentarian. Now, this is the way he thinks, and you could see clearly that it is either he's motivated by malice or the partisan lines, and I say he's not even thinking right, and I say he's just ignorant about this whole process. Because at this point, anybody will push the president to court to stop him because Onyamo Chief Justice Amania. So we have provisions now, Article 146 now down was a chere hawa so we Chief Justice through her and I say any member of the Supreme Court bench no through her and I say or talk about regional tribunal chairman and as a forum so you move through her there are clear outline our constitution and kasa adhere to her quite clearly how that particular process must be your friends applied so at any point in time. So what the president avia offer, you have every right, citizen, to complain. But at this point, the questioner is any reasonable, logical mind be beside who said at this point, President Afomemra. Now the Chief Justice who demand now all demanded for petition copy, no, is it right or is it wrong? That is the question we are going to answer this time. The whole thing is that Constitution say President receive petitioner. It was set up that particular petition. Now, Odema, your friends, Council of State, no more establish a prima facie in the face of whether it is credible to be your friends saying but what people are not considering is particular we need a constitutional injunction on both the president and on your friends, Council of State. So petition the president why he's just a conveying bells. So there, yes, and fellas, in one of the press way the president's duty is to push that particular petition to the Council of State and establishing whether there is merit or not. That process is not an adversarial process. That is what people should understand. Adversarial, say, I don't know a bit more quiet and I say that particular process is never adversarial. It's a procedural. Who say petition appropriate and I say appropriate on the face of thing that has been presented. So at that point, you don't need the input of Chief Justice because they are not going to go into the case, the merit of it, to determine whether it is relevant or not. Sometimes you can even just look at the petition on the face of it and determine, say, even the petition is not competent. So there was a time I think say a bit by sign. So some of these technical distance can even render the petition incompetent to be forwarded to the next stage. But this time, the president as a conveyor belt, has a constitutional injunction on him to push this thing to Council of State to determine, to establish that prima facie, your friends say, in the face of what has been presented. May say that particular process is not adversarial process. Either warranty the Chief Justice to say So for a whole Chief Justice who understand this whole thing to come and say, yeah man, a copy at this time, it is wrong. And again, so what kind of constitution now called Article 146 clause 10 now? I don't know if you have a copy, you can read it. It quite clearly say president forward petition now say Council of State it may establish say indeed they need to proceed here. From that point going, it becomes an adversarial process. And at that point, the Chief Justice must be heard. Okay. I hope you understand. So at that point, committee no better say or more recommendation and a president better so act as to whether so obepam ma men and answer ma men better. So at that point, as the principles of natural justice dictate, the person must be given the right to be heard. So at that point, a committee has been set up, comprises of a high court, Supreme Court judge, and other people. You can say you appoint your more lawyers and so composition, no kind of constitution or no, a kind of clear. When that particular panel or committee is set up, at that point, you cannot say, oh, my Chief Justice, you can say a copy to know, because she must appear before the committee either in person or by her lawyer. And at that point, she must be heard. And the crime banner of a fast one, is because when your petition I can. I hope you get a point. This is when your petition I can. So this whole process, include Chief Justice having access to the petition, but not just points. Because points do and it's not an adversarial process. You be finding any adverse finding against the Chief Justice is to either to know say there are merit, we can give credence to the petition, and that we can start the process. And this is what kind of constitutional article 148 downwards now. Even with the president or started from forwarding it to the Council of State. That is where it starts from. After dealing with your first member of the Supreme Court or the tribunal chairman, or started with sending the petition to Council of State to establish the premier fascia, whether it is relevant. So from that point, and say, that's sorry. Now Council of State back actually and say, Nema petition in the on the face of it, we think the petition is competent and it can proceed to the next stage. At that point, the president will have no other option than to give the woman copies to read. At this point, even the Council of State can say, oh, on the face of it, your friends are not competent enough to proceed. So, what they copy command and I who here at this point. And I don't know why some people on the other side, MPP, are taking this whole issue as if something has happened. And I don't know why the Chief Justice herself is panicking. Because I don't know signs of panic, or she's panicking.
Well, demanding for the petition.
Yes, at this time she's just panicking. And baby or me, I'm not sure or here, because as I'm American, she understands this thing even better than I do. So for her to come publicly to send letters and ask for demanding say your man a copy, when she knows this whole process can never terminate without her being given your friend saying opportunity to read. And again, the committee in the French Chief Justice. Now you catch us your 7 days for all responsible. But she can say, oh, the period is short, so give me 1 month. You have the right. Because at the end of the day, the input that you send to the committee, and as a summer babaka, and as a winning petition, you can request for more time. So there is no haste in this thing. For her demanding. Because I say, there is no way this thing will terminate without Chief Justice having access to the petition. She knows. So it's just you see, she's doing these things just to court public sympathy. Because Tafo MP because after elections, they've lost relevance. So they are just clutching at straws. So in some who be about no sorry be actually they cockot. Because Yansa be a nimsasem what they cockot. Oh, me your friend a member point in
yeah. Quickly, Mammy, 5 minutes become so that I can go for a short, quick commercial break.
Hey, yeah, sure. There's a number of break as some time,
yeah, I didn't account me. Yes, I
oh, Kofi, as a what kind of constitution now, or be so clearly say on what grounds any bit may Chief Justice a flu or a either misbehavior, incompetence, or infirmity to both body and mind. You don't know you know who said Chief Justice yare. But there are two broad areas that are very, very vague. One here in interpretation your way, one has to do with misbehavior and the other one has to do with incompetence. But they are normally, you will be free. Wait me use your incompetence. Because incompetence is like a sea. I will come for fishing. When you be or and there are a lot. One, make sure say at this point, public trust in institutions are winning considerably. That alone is enough testament to give justification to the fact that the person in charge is incompetent. And there are public posts out there. Again, so here's some of the rulings in the past. Birth certificate issue. You know, I mean, she was part of the panel even though she wasn't the Chief Justice then. And again, in recent times, most of the contentious issues about abonting, there was a time Electoral Commission decided to embark on a particular registration at the district level. NDC and 6 other political parties at the court. Such issues, you will expect in Kabeya swift response. Almost Chief Justice took on the time date national bottom or my one TV. These are evidence. These are evidence of incompetence anywhere, because bench in your mama and your papa then who took out the data show bottom. What are some Americans say? And when it comes to some of these adverse findings, I bet justify incompetence as well. I can sit here and tell you that there are a number of them. The banter between the Supreme Court and the Judiciary. Yeah. Some of the rulings about the banter between the Speaker of Parliament. In the end, this LGBT issue, the swift manner, yadikotie afenyo marking issue. Now this whole landmark case are for the Muslims. Edi achire se yenye. Now no issue na yese Tafo MP ni akokota. Sansam I can sit and tell you ensem hunu, but unzi a fixed date for Tuesday. Someone who's a fixed date. So it means the woman is acting where it favors her. Exactly. Yes, I mean, one thing I don't like about her is that posture of arrogance, looking down on people that kind of way. For me, she doesn't engender trust and confidence. Ghana for a pair from the judiciary, and against the backdrop said, majority of Ghanaians don't trust the institution called judiciary. There is the need for us to sanitize the institution. What I say, and at this point in time, maybe or no one who said. Because for her to scream when it's not time for her to scream, no, clearly choose a Adibia fanatum. Bakofi at the chair Muslim for AD, your friend is saying, holiday no Musalano, who's a Umupian and Pio Comayanka, sign and Pino ya Dayon Mafia. Say you could do us a malam crano and the kind of to the coma, Epe Christo in eternity. So then Piana, a salad dura and the Comayankano, we yet died and Pio never come home. And that is the situation I see. So Chief Justice, ya cannot ne come my yankano. Onim say edanya o mafie. Enunti na wasa se kekam no because onim dia waye. And within the judiciary itself, there is tension among people on the bench. Promotion. Quite recently, and you on the far cat actual command and Akufo-Addo. Actually on the number for the classmate didn't say or person or appoint to the bench. We have fee. And that thing was illegitimate, it was illegal because such consultation must be done with the Judicial Council. But Opusio Muniran or that particular letter is a sign of income. It means that one can win him the auto and away. Obin a favor no pushu. So for me, that woman, as long as she's there, and the reason why she's fighting it, Sadia will go through her. It will become a danger on herself. She will be the first Chief Justice in the history of this country under the Fourth Republic, and she doesn't want that. But that is why you see some people on the other side, but for the Tafo MP and the MPP, what they are doing there, these are confused people who have lost the election. Instead of them to go and sit down and then see how back, they're just clutching at these straws just to be relevant. I think they should be ignored. That nothing has happened. President Mahama at this point has not aired on Fume Mrabia, Sankawa Fuma, Kofi, Meno Matanaha Mesoso. You know that. So it's a process, Say you set up a committee to transfer the finding back. Nasa man ya man kwanya. No. You know who said it's in clear violation of her human right. And we'll come here and talk about it. But we are not there yet. And there is no indications that president will not allow her to be heard. But at this point, I think she should stop screaming and call her dogs back home. Or more go straight to this or more back for no because time in so yet. Some be back. Time no swan. You remember more pack, I'm more big and so back, and then everybody will hear them. But at this point, I'm not sure say they have any point.
But now say, Ivan Kyei innocent, a researcher, and watching on the Chief Justice, the request sent one more money at the copies of the petition. Said that they are also with me. I go through. I don't know. I share the matters arising on that very particular issue. I mean, court era, Alan, the graft, and also a